We are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome. This is Dan Connor with the Aquarium Insider Podcast. And today I'm super excited. I've got a great guest with me. Her name is Pam Chin, and we're going to talk about keeping tropheus, going to Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika, and then how other hobbyists can get involved in conservation of these different species. So I'm super excited. Pam, thank you again for coming on. It's great to have you. I'd like to go ahead and let you start by kind of giving an introduction about what you do, fish you keep, and a little bit of your background.
Sure. And thank you for inviting me, Dan. So I've been a tropical fish enthusiast for many, many years, and I seem to stick with the cichlids. They're my favorite family. The organized part of the hobby has really been big in my fish keeping. It started out with a local club, and then we went to a regional club, and then, of course, we went to the national club. And this gave us such an opportunity to, find rare fish, meet people that have worked with these fish before, the education part, and the social aspect. I don't think anyone likes to party more than cichlid people. So that's been a lot of fun in the hobby. And of course, this has led me to meet people that not only raise different fish, but a lot of people that go to natural habitats and check the fish out and travel together. And I just thought that sounded like a lot of fun. And I'm kind of proof that, you don't have to be a scientist or an ichthyologist or a photographer or a swimmer or anything to be able to do this. You just have to have the love for the fish. And so I like to tell people that, anybody can go and look at these fish in their natural habitat. I am a founding member of the Babes in the Cichlid Hobby, and we're really not a club. We're more of just a clique of women that want to help the hobby. And our favorite passion is cichlid research and cichlid conservation through the American Cichlid Association. But we also have a few other funds that we support. And we just think it's really important to look at this aspect of the hobby. We all kind of have a little bit of fish guilt about taking something out of the wild and putting it in a glass box. And so supporting cichlid research and cichlid conservation can, make you feel good about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I was, when I was doing a little bit of research, I was like, Pam likes to keep tropheus. She's kept those over the years. I saw you wrote quite a few articles for cichlids.com. Mm-hmm. I read some of those where you're talking about keeping different tropheus, different fish out of Lake Malawi. So I was like, man, I gotta reach out to Pam and get some insight on these fish that you've been keeping all these years. So that's awesome. I kind of wanted to ask you, what got you into fish keeping in general? Like what sparked your interest originally?
Well, I didn't even know that I liked fish until I met my husband. And when I met Gary, he had fish tanks all over his apartment or his house. And I was just mesmerized by all of these tanks. I just loved them. And he was really into tank busters at that time. And he had, Oscars. And this is a long time ago. He had Arapima, knife fish, arowanas, all of these really big tank buster fish.
Yeah.
And it was really amazing to learn about them. And then, we started going to the stores and learning more about fish. And then we fell into the clubs and, the rest is history.
Awesome. All right. So I kind of wanted to take a little note on that and jump into, you like to keep tropheus, right?
Well, I am very fond of tropheus. Okay. It's a phase, I'm sure. But yeah, I like tropheus a lot.
Okay, so in that part, so you did mention this meat. I don't want to give away too much, but how many tanks do you currently keep right now?
We have a little fish house and about 150 tanks. And so we're working with tropheus, but we're also working with fish from Malawi and fish from Tanganyanika. And the main reason we're working with Tanganyikan fish is because we have such good water for that. We have a well, and it comes out 9.3. Can't do angels in that. So, we're lazy. We don't want to manipulate the water too much. And so Tanganyikas do great, and, we love them.
Awesome. So I kind of want to, could you give us a little rundown on what is the maintenance or what does the routine look like for maintaining 150 aquariums? Because that's a lot. We have here on the farm, we've got probably maybe 400 or 500, but it's not the same type setup or whatever. But I wanted to get your insight on how do you maintain those things? What does that look like, I guess, on a weekly basis?
Well, we just start on one end of the fish house, and it takes about 3 weeks to get to the other end of the fish house. So, and we do massive water changes. I don't advise everyone to change water like we do, but we make, I call them 115% water changes, where we're sucking all the water out and they're getting all fresh water. And so we have basically we have a pump that pumps in the water, and we have a pump that pumps out the water. So a very simple system. Nothing's really automated other than the pumps.
Yep.
And we mostly keep tanks with bare bottom substrate. We don't keep a whole lot of sand because it's such a labor intensive thing to have. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's pretty much what our routine is. Gary starts on one end of the fish house. He does most of the maintenance. And we also have an issue with our water where it has dissolved gases in it. So it needs to gas off for about 48 hours, 36, 48 hours. And we have a holding tank that holds about 500 gallons of water. So, you can squeeze a little bit more than that out of it, but that's about as much water as I can change in a day.
We are in the same boat. So we got a well here for all of our stuff, and we built a greenhouse, and we built the degassing station. Figured we could probably get it to degas inside the greenhouse. It wouldn't be a big deal or nothing. And we don't have any dissolved gas issues in the greenhouse per se, but it's a greenhouse structure, and the gases have actually started rusting off and degrading the metal of the greenhouse. Which was not smart. It was just a flaw in the design. We messed that up. So I was like, we degas, we have a flow through greenhouse. So all of our vats outside, we've got 200-gallon vats that we have fish that we grow up in on the farm. And everything's like a flow through system. So everything gets degassed in one tank, pumped up to the other station, everything gravity feeds from there. So having those dissolved gases in there, very familiar, and frustrated we made a flaw design in our system setup. So interesting. All right. What would you tell a newer hobbyist that wanted to get into the hobby and keep Tanganyikans and Malawis? What advice would you give them, I guess is a good way to put it?
Well, I think you really need to do some research because both of these lakes have a ton of fish in them, and they all have different requirements. And so the trying to sort out what goes with what is quite an ordeal. And you don't want to do it, by killing the fish off, because I've done that. You need to do some research and figure out, where you want to go. And it's best. I always tell people that they should pick their target fish. Okay. And then really concentrate on that fish and then build onto that one fish rather than getting, 4 fish I can't live without and trying to make it work. It just usually doesn't. Tanganyikans are very, they just will not tolerate anything. Lake Malawi fish, they can tolerate a bad tank for another week, but Tanganyikans won't. And they can go from bad to good really, really fast. So, and then the other thing is you need to make sure that you're feeding the right foods and that you're not mixing vegetarians with meat eaters. It might work in the beginning, but in the end, it's just not going to work. And there are some fish that you just have to keep species only. And that brings us right back around to tropheus. Because I just really believe if you really want to do a tropheus tank and you really want to see the full potential that tropheus can show you, then you really got to do a species-only tank. And to get the bond in the group and to see all of that is just absolutely wonderful. And if you try to mix 2 species together, you're just those fish are never going to get the color that they're going to get. But if you keep them in a species-only tank, and I also think that. If you're going to embark on this, these 2 lakes, that you should buy tank-raised fish or pond-raised fish and really learn your ropes with that. And then, you can venture out and spend your life savings on some wild fish. But availability of hobbyists that are working with fish, along with the people that are breeding fish in the ponds, and we are so lucky to have all of this, such a wide variety of fish. I mean, it's unbelievable. We don't need to even touch the wild fish.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I would definitely agree. Don't, tank raised fish obviously makes it good. Wild caught fish, that's a whole nother ball game. A lot of these fish already been adapted. They've been raised here. Not much, not a whole lot of issues. Since we're circling back to the tropheus, I want to hit on a few questions for people looking to keep tropheus tanks. What kind of tank requirements you think are for keeping like a good group? If they wanted to get a group of tropheus, what's a good tank size for people to start with?
Well, I really think you need a 6-foot tank. And I think that length is more important than gallonage. So if you have a tank that is maybe it's only 12 inches wide, but it's 6 feet long, that is going to be, that's the deal. Tropheus, maybe you've heard of this flea theory, where a tropheus or another fish will only chase another fish so far before they will give up the chase to get them out of their territory, right? So with tropheus, it's a good 6 feet. So if you can do tropheus in a 4-foot tank, but if you have aggression issues, your fish are going to get nailed. They cannot get away in a 4-foot tank. And so that's why I preach, a 6-foot tank. A 125 is my go-to tank. I love a 125, but I have all my groups and tanks that are 6 feet and are over 100 gallons, pretty much.
Just curious, how many 125s do you have right now?
Make me do math. Oh, I don't know. I think I counted up. Somebody wanted to know how many groups of tropheus that I have, and so then I was counting the tanks that way. So I have over 30. I probably have 35 gallons.
Wow.
35 tanks over 100 gallons.
Well, since you had that question, how many you have 35 groups of tropheus?
Well, I have 20 different species.
Okay.
But I'm a paranoid tropheus keeper, and so I got to have a backup in case something happens to the other one.
Absolutely.
So that's why I have some multiple groups. Yes.
Okay. So, do you have what kind of filtration do you want to run on these aquariums? Is it hang-on bags? Is it sponge?
I have a vein axial blower. And I'm running sponge filters and box filters, homemade box filters, just because, sponge filters are great, but they don't pick up the big chunks. And you need that box filter to, kind of keep the stuff off the bottom of the tank.
I was looking at that earlier today. We have a few different type of sponges we're trying to convert to here. And the coarser the sponge, when we were doing our little, tests or whatever, they don't pick up any of the heavier detritus or excess stuff at all. They'll suck it to the bottom of the filter, but it just kind of sits there. It makes it easy to clean because everything we do is bare bottom, obviously, too. Mm-hmm. But I was like, man, there's a lot more. I got to figure out another way to deal with this. So so for a box filter, I don't know what a box filter is. I'll be completely honest. I've never heard of a box filter.
Okay. So basically it's a mechanical and biological filter. Okay. And you can use any kind of a container. The types that you see in the store, they're like the old fashioned kind, like a triangle, and it would fit in the corner of your tank.
I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Okay, and you have a layer for some, we used to use charcoal or gravel, and you can put some angel hair on the top to really polish your water. That's basically a box filter. So then you just take that, that would work for your 20-gallon tank. So when you need a 125, you're over at Target getting the big shoe boxes and basically doing the same thing. Cut up an old under gravel filter to put down on the base, and then, a sponge of, you can buy the sponge like from Steve & Tanner, the super duper sponge with all the millions of feet of surface area, and then put some rocks on the top. And of course, the amount of air that is going through that is the more air you have, the better the filter is going to work. Same with sponge filters. And so a blower, you're not going to get that with a whisper plugged into the wall.
No,
but I have a blower, so I do.
Okay.
Just suck it through.
And then lighting for your aquariums. What kind of lights do you typically run for these types of setups?
I'm really cheap. Okay. and there's my electrical bill is already like the national debt. And so when we did our original, first of all, a fish house is, such a work in process. I mean, it's taken forever.
Absolutely.
We really like the lights on the ceiling because we really can't afford to put a light on every tank and run all the wire and have the electricity. I mean, it's just like you can have anything you want, but we cannot plug another thing in. Okay.
Oh, I hear you.
So most of our lights are on the ceiling, and we don't have a substrate, and so the light goes through most 3 shelves. And then we have some few show tanks that we have lights on, but basically no, just the ceiling.
All right. And then, well, I know this is going to differ, so I want to kind of circle back a little bit more specific to the tropheus specifically. What do you feed them? Like, what's their diet look like? Oh,
cheap green flake. Okay. The cheapest green flake you can find, there's several different brands, similar to maybe like the Zoomed Spirulina, the Spirulina 2020, I can't remember the name of it. There's a couple of food manufacturers. It's about 35% protein. And that's their day in, day out. And then I do believe they need a little bit of protein to getting in spawning condition. Sure. And so we supplement that with freeze-dried mysis shrimp. There's a really nice krill out there that's very, very small, and you can chop that up, not the big chunk and big chunk krill. Baby brine, something like that. No pellets. I don't believe in pellets because, with tropheus, you only have so many mistakes that you can be making, right?
Sure.
And so you make 2 or 3 mistakes and you can still, plug along. But why would you feed your fish a pellet that's going to blow up in their stomach when a fish is known to have, stomach issues? So I think that the quality of the food out there, I mean, I don't think you can beat it these days. I mean, it's unbelievable, but that's really not the issue. It's just that fish food is just too rich to feed to tropheus on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah, I would, looking when we started setting up the retail space and going through some of the products and different foods out there, I'm like, well, what makes these so much different? Or what makes these better? And I'm like, it's actually a lot different than I feel like it used to be even 10 years ago. Like the quality of food, the types of food that are available now, the different companies that are out there making these different formulas, trying new protein sources.
Yeah.
Really interesting how to, take a step back and be like, okay, let's see what makes sense. And then compare what we've been using commercially for 20 years, essentially.
You're right. And I think it really depends as a hobbyist, and you only have, 1 or 2 tanks or whatever. It really depends on what you're keeping,
right.
Whether you need to feed it. But the fish food that is out today, oh my God, it is so much better than what we had before. And that's compounded because, people, it's so easy to overfeed tropheus. They are the best beggars in the entire world. And so you want to feed them a little bit more, but you just can't because tropheus they'll eat till they die.
Yeah.
And when you feed pellets, 2 or 3 get all the pellets and the rest don't get any pellets. And then, that's all blown up in their stomach. So anyway, I stay away from the pellets.
Sure. And you touched on this earlier for the tropheus, and I wanted to kind of circle back to make sure we talked about some more because I know other people are going to be like, no, you can. Like, no. Do you keep any tank mates in those tanks, like any bottom feeders of any kind, or is it is a only tropheus tank?
Mm-hmm. Species only tank. Yep. And the reason is because I've probably killed more tropheus than anyone else. And I really believe that now that I keep them in a truly species only tank, I'm much, much better off. Much better. Lot less problems, for sure.
Yeah, I that was probably my favorite fish I kept at my old house. I used to keep a tank of them schooling or whatever, and it was just that. I had no other bottom feeders in it. I had one nice little rock structure in the middle, and that was it. That was the whole tank setup. And it was just fun to see how they interacted and moved together. It was really interesting to me. So I was like, man, I want to keep something more like this. So that's how I got interested in tropheus and other Tanganyikas, because I wasn't as familiar with that, those species as much. And I'm looking at the different kinds. There's so many different kinds to get. I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's so many different types out there, and a lot you don't see. They're not super common in the hobby as far as finding them at your local store. You'll find one here or there typically, but they're a cool fish. So I wanted to know as much as I can about them.
Well, I really think they're pretty much all the same. It's just, what's your favorite color? Each has a few, but they're all a few differences, but they're pretty darn close.
Okay. So I kind of wanted to segue from just keeping tropheus to what is it like to go, I call it traveling to origin. I have a small coffee background where, like, as a coffee roaster, I was coffee roasting for a few years in between here. And traveling to origin was always a big talk. So when I talk about things, I'm like, traveling to origin. And to me, that means representing, like, going and see where the fish originally come from. So you've been to Lake Tanganyika, Lake Malawi. Well, actually, let me ask you this first. How did that come about? What made the decision for you to start going to those different places?
Well, it's a real funny story, because I never even thought about going to a place to see where fish were at or where they came from or whatever. And I had heard a few travel logs and stuff before, and I always thought that was really, really interesting. And then a couple of my girlfriends that are in the babes and the cichlid hobby with me said, we're going to Mexico and we're meeting Rusty Wessel down there, and we're going to go do all the live bearers and all this stuff around here, And I thought, oh yeah, God, no, I don't think I can do that. And so but then I had such peer pressure, and I just could, I just knew I had to get out of it, but I just couldn't. And so I went. And I had the time of my life. I mean, it was such a blast. Oh my God. Let's see, I think we were gone eight days in Mexico. And it was really quite an unusual trip, because usually these guys all go together and they never take the girls with them. Okay. They had never taken woman hobbyists with them. So we, felt that was really special, and we had such a good time or whatever. So when we all got back home, it was like, all right, what time are we going to go next year? And the guys pretty much told us that, it's over, we're going, but we're not taking girls back with us, so it was, we were just, beside ourselves. And we were at a fish convention with Odd Conings. We were the speaker handlers. We had to make sure they had a meal and they got to and from the airport and all this stuff. And so we had Odd Conings in the back of a Chevy Impala or something ripping around, and we were crying on his shoulder. Oh, Odd. We had so much fun, and they won't let us come back or whatever. And he said, well, you girls come with me to Africa. And so I said, all right, I'm in.
All right. Wow.
And it was about, I don't know, when we decided it was about a 16-month wait before we actually left. But then in the end, this is what's so funny. All the guys that took us to Mexico, they ended up coming on this trip with us to Africa.
Oh, I like that. Oh, can't come with us to Mexico. Oh, can we go with you? Can we go with you?
So anyway, what a blast. I mean, it was just an unbelievable trip. And Lake Tanganyika is just absolutely gorgeous. And so I definitely wanted to go back. And then a few years later, I went to Malawi. And then at that time, Malawi was easier to access and everything was running smooth there. And so I went to Malawi like 5 or 6 times, and it was really good for me because I really learned how to swim in Malawi really well. And before we got back to Lake Tanganyika, and then we went back to Lake Tanganyika, and now we're on a Tanganyanika roll. We've been there now the last 4 or 5 years. So,
wow,
got to go where they're going. That's all. I just hope somebody plans a trip and invites me. So it's fun.
All right, so I have some granular questions about that. What is planning a trip for something like this? These are simplistic question, but I was just curious on my own. What does travel time look like from where you are to get to Lake Malawi?
Well, it's usually 3 to 4 days, depending on where I want to go. The Malawi is only 2 hours from the airport you land at.
Okay.
That is, that's very and it's all paved road. Okay.
That's nice.
The first time I went to Lake Tanganyanika, it was, I don't know, like I said, we knew for a long time we were going. Well, then it came up that we were going to be riding on a flatbed truck, and so we said,
okay.
Well, okay, I mean, we're young. Come on.
Yeah.
And that turned into about 18 hours on a flatbed truck.
Oh my gosh.
To the lake. And then it's a 2-hour boat ride from the lake to this lodge that we were staying at.
Wow.
So I thought, that story, how could I ever top that way, right? So I'm in Malawi with Conings, and we're going to go 2 weeks in Malawi, and then we're going to drive from Malawi to Tanganyanika. And I don't know, do you know Juan Miguel Artigas Azayas, who he is the creator and founder and guide for Cichlid Room Companion?
I don't know him personally, but I've read a few things.
He's unbelievable. So he couldn't do both lakes or something. So he's picking up the van and he's going to meet us up on Lake Malawi. And so here he comes with this van, but there's 8. Let's see. Yeah, there was 8 of us. And this van, and everybody, I mean, they got scuba gear. Everybody's got 2 big suitcases. Okay. I just didn't know how that was going to work. And Conings told me that it was probably, I think he told me 12 hours, probably 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours. Well, it was great till we hit a dirt road. And then it took us I think it was 36 hours before we made it to the lodge.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is a trip. And now when we go to Tanganyanika, we try to fly in as close to the lake we can. And lately that's been in Mbaya. And it's still 10 to 12 hours to the lake from there.
And Mbaya, that's Tanzania, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is. But it's actually closer to Lake Malawi than it is to Lake Tanganyanika.
Wow.
Kind of ironic too.
36 hours on a flatbed.
Yeah, I know. That's unbelievable. Then one time but we're not quitters. We just keep going. And so we did it again. But this time we got a much bigger van. And that was a little bit better. But part of the problem is when we hit a dirt road, we had that other van so loaded. We probably only had 2 inches of clearance. So we couldn't go any faster than, 10 or 20 miles an hour.
Oh my.
Oh God, it was a killer. Today we laugh our heads off at it. I can't believe it. At the time it was you got to stop. We got to unfold everybody. Everybody's got to walk a little bit before we go any further.
My gosh. So traveling these places and staying, you mentioned lodges. So is there companies that have lodges built for this type of thing, or is it just sort of what does that look like?
There's kind of a whole variety of things. And that's one thing that's really, really critical. You've got to have a lodge support you because you can't bring all your camping gear. You have to have a way to fill diving tanks. You've got to have a cook. You can't be cooking yourself, and so you need all this support. And there's only, maybe 3 or 4 places on the whole lake that can really do that. And one is in Doli Lodge, which is in Zambia. And then there's Lakeshore, which is in Kapili. And then there's probably a place in Kagoma. And there's nothing on the Congo side, nothing on the west side of the lake at all.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've been going in and out of Kapili, and it's been great. I mean, they have the best boat. I mean, I have been on some bad boats in Africa, let me tell you.
I'm sure.
And they have the best boat right now. I mean, I just go back for the boat. It's great. It's like glam boating, glam camping. It's great.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually a few nights at the lodge on, when you get there, and then you got to test, make sure everything's right. And then when you leave, all divers have to wait 24 hours before they can fly. So we got a dead day in the lodge going back. But usually everything in between, we're camping on the lake somewhere.
That's awesome. And that's
it's
that
super.
is a trip, I imagine, to behold, man. And it's huge. I mean, obviously it's largest lake, one of the largest lakes there. I mean, crazy big.
Well,
So I just can't imagine.
Really, I'd say it's the second largest lake in the world. I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Pam, I wanted to ask you this. What do you say has been the most impactful part going to these different regions and then taking what you see and whatnot and bring back the hobby? What do you think has been most impactful for you?
Well, now that it's, I've been going for 20 years, so I've actually, and back to the same place several times. So I've got, I've seen how some things have progressed. And I think the most impactful thing to me is just how the population has grown. And, people worry about these fish being over-collected. But that really is more of a hobby business issue. The real problem is that, they're going to eat all the fish in the lake. So that is probably, it took me a little while to come to, kind of come to terms with that. But I really believe that's where we're going.
Really? So, so that's the big, the hobby business over, that's whole one thing. I was thinking, well, maybe there's like overlogging or pollution that's bothering the lakes, but you think it's just overfishing it for as far as a food source?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And we have seen this kind of playing out in Malawi and in the southern part of the lake. And, these lakes everything's got to line up right for them to keep going. And once something gets pulled out, it's really bad. And when I was in Malawi, last time I was in Malawi was 2016. And I mean, it was really frightful. I mean, the people are starving. And so of course they're just catching all the fish they can. They have the national park there, but they're not supposed to collect fish, let alone fish for fish food there. And, the people catching the fish it's almost was about ready to turn into violence there. So, that's when it's time for conservation to pull back, because it's not worth getting yourself killed over. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So, when you see that in action, it can be quite scary. And so it's we've had this problem in the fishing in the national park, and we've tried several things to curb it, but it doesn't seem to be happening. Up in the northern part, there's an organization called Ripple, and their goal is to keep keep their fishing grounds near the village, and to give them some pride into their fishing grounds so that they don't let the other villages come in. Everybody needs to stay at their own village. And one of the most impactful things that I have seen there is using the Bill Gates mosquito nets to catch fish, which is the absolute worst, because that they're catching the baby fish. So with that small of a net, so there's no way that the fish can come back when you're using, they take them and they sew them all together and then take them out and then pull it in as a seine net. And not only does it destroy the whole beach, but it catches every fish in that capture.
Huh.
And so, these are things that, it's really, when I get upset because somebody's, doing something with wild fish or with the hobby or whatever, it really is minor compared to, what's really happening on the ground in these countries. So it's sad. Yeah.
That wasn't something I was thinking about or crossed my mind. And I'm glad you shared that with us, because I was not expecting that. I wasn't thinking they would be, I could see bigger fish, but catching all the small fish, that's a whole nother game. That's a whole nother deal, which,
so many of the small fish are in the shallow water.
Mhm.
In these little plant beds. It looks like Val, and the little fish hide in there. And when they seine that net up, they're pulling out the valve. So even if they miss the fish, there's no place for the fish to hide. So of course, someone's going to come along and eat it.
Interesting.
And it's sad because the people there are so sweet. I mean, in Malawi, I mean, there is not a friendlier place to go to. But it's so sad because none of them, I mean, they might wade in the water, but they will never stick their head in the water. And there's very, very few Malawi people that I know. I mean, I can't even count them on one hand that have actually put on a mask and looked at the water and looked at the fish under the water. Huh. And this is another thing that, people are so, it's easy to get people excited about elephants and rhinos and this type of thing. But the problem with fish is they're underwater. And so no one sees them. Yeah. And no one knows, what kind of danger they're in. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. Well, I wanted to segue from that into the conservation side and some projects and things you've been a part of. And I know you've touched on a few of them earlier, but I wanted to kind of backtrack on that side of things. Is when did you become interested in the conservation of those types of fish and cichlids in general?
Well, I think we really started out in kind of in the grassroots of it, where at the American Cichlid Association, they had one of the founding members had passed away and left like $50,000 to the club, and so they wanted to put it into a trust, and then award that trust to someone who was doing cichlid research. So, at that time, there were a lot of people, into fish research or zoological or, all of this kind of stuff. And we used to get, applicants for, people would send in a request for money, 10, 12 at a time. Now it's very hard to get anybody to turn it in, and it's like free money. But they give away just the interest and award that, and people submit a reason why they should get the money. And so anyway, the long story short, so the babes in the cichlid hobby, we're just trying to get in with the guys. Okay, it's such a male dominated hobby, and we just want to do things that we just want to make a difference. And so we started just doing fun stuff and having games and mystery speakers and stuff like this. And we would pass the hat to get money, to make a donation to the Guy Jordan Fund, which was the Cichlid Research Fund. And then about in the middle of that, they opened up another fund, and they call it the Paul Loisdale Conservation Fund. And so they really needed money to seed that as well. And we figured out how to do a silent auction. And then later we learned out we actually have we call it an oral auction because it's a live auction as well for rare fish. And then we just give all that money to those funds. And then also the Stuart Grant Foundation Conservation Fund as well. And so that's what our main goal is. And we just go to the ACA convention. I just got back from St. Louis the middle of July for this year's convention. It was an absolute blast. We had a wild oral auction, and we had a really good silent auction. And so we were able to contribute some money to those two funds this year.
Awesome. Yeah. That was going to be my question, is where these auctions happen. So it's always at the ACA every year, typically?
Typically it is. Once in a while, somebody will have a certain, we like to be there and do it live. And, but we're not really a club. We're just a clique of girls that, get to work on this stuff. So, we're, wherever we can. Next year, they're going to have a huge tropical fish extravaganza where they're going to have 3 or 4 different groups all at one time. So they'll have the cichlid people, the live bearer people, the killie people, and the rainbow people, I think, are all coming to Louisville. And so it's going to be a big deal. And so, we'll definitely be there doing doing an oral auction and also a silent auction.
Yeah, I want to find that date because I actually would like to go to that. That'd be interesting. So ALA is coming here, I think October down. I'm in Florida, so I think it's in Fort Myers, Fort Lauderdale. I don't remember exactly where, but I saw the flyer somewhere.
Right. I think I saw something on that too.
So
yeah, this is going to be in Louisville, and I think it's the last weekend in July. It's either the second to the last or the last weekend in July, which is typically when the ACA has their convention.
Okay.
So, yeah. Do you know Rusty Wessel?
I don't know him personally, but I remember the name, and I can't remember from where.
Yeah. So he's been big in the ACA for years, and he's big into live bearers. So anyway, he's a little mover shaker in the
Okay.
city. So his club, it's the Louisville Tropical Fishkeepers, I think is the name of the club there that will be the host club.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta keep that in mind and put that up for everybody because that's gonna be a fun. That sounds like a fun time.
I'll send you a link or something on it. I'll send you.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
And then I also wanted to ask you about, so Babes in Hobby, you guys donate money to a few different cichlid foundations and research places. Mm-hmm. And then I also, and this is something that's been new to me since I learned about it, and that was C.A.R.E.S for fish. Mm-hmm. So could you explain a little bit about what C.A.R.E.S for fish is?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's been a goal in the hobby for a really long time for there to be a list of what is endangered in the wild, and maybe a list of what people are working with. And so C.A.R.E.S was developed by Claudia Dickinson, and she's a little gal that lives up in the Northeast. And she got together. The problem with the IUCN list is that they only update it like every 15, 20 years. Okay. Yeah. 90% of the fish, if you go look at them, that they were evaluated in 1963. Okay.
Yep.
So, and we have a lot of people that are going on trips to South America, to West Africa, on the Congo River, and that have been able to evaluate, which fish are, whether they're being over collected or whether their habitat is in danger, et cetera. And so she developed this list working with these authorities, and you can go on the C.A.R.E.S website and see who is the authority for each region. Mm. And then also there's a list for it's all freshwater fish. So there's a list of cichlids, list of live bearers, list of bettas. It's all freshwater fish. And you can read, what its rating is, whether it's critically endangered, whether it's extinct, whether it's vulnerable. So it took a lot, to get that whole list together, and kudos to Claudia. She really did it. But it's not something that, so for an organization to try to catalog what everybody's working with, and, it's pretty much impossible. It's pretty much impossible to do. So she came up with this idea that each club can have a C.A.R.E.S program. We'll give you the guidelines of how you can do the C.A.R.E.S program, and you're welcome to modify it, if you want to. And we encourage people to maybe team it up with their breeding award programs. And because sometimes, breeding award program where you get points for breeding fish, well, right. That's good to learn for husbandry, but there's a lot of people that just want the trophy. And so, they're just breeding, all the easy stuff, then dumping it at the next auction, and, they never keep anything,
Right.
And so we encourage them to reward people that, maybe keep a fish that's, critically endangered. If you can, keep that fish, you should get some points for it to go through your, as maintenance and breeding points. And you should be able, usually when you breed a fish, you only get the points for breeding it. You don't really get points to maintain it. And so it's just another way for clubs to, kind of get it involved, but it's really up to the club. They give you the guidelines. And, of course, you have to have someone that can verify the species and, that it really truly is a C.A.R.E.S species and that type of thing. But it's really opened a lot of eyes to people that had no idea that, that they were keeping a C.A.R.E.S fish and they didn't even know it, So they're already keeping endangered fish and they don't know it. And so usually once you give them that, they get excited about it. And we can't save every fish out there, but if we all just maintained one tank or one species, it would certainly allow us to keep some species in the hobby. It's impossible. There have been a few releases in the past, but we're learning more and more about it, that maybe releasing them back it's kind of dicey. One problem is, I worked on the releasing Psilocybe back in Lake Malawi.
Okay.
And, as soon as we pulled out of the way, here come the exporters and, catch them all up, send them to Europe. So, that is so frustrating, conservation.
Yeah.
Usually, you think you're getting ahead of them and then they just, you're two steps back.
Yeah.
And so these are the kind of things that you can't really blast about it. You can't get on social media and say, oh yeah, we just transplanted, 200 Psilocybe at Taiwanese Reef. It's just not going to, you can't do it because people are too unscrupulous out there. Sadly, sad story.
Yes.
But if we can keep a fish that's in the hobby and be able to maintain it so that future fish keepers can keep it, it doesn't get lost, all the little brown ones that nobody likes, then, it should make the hobby last longer and pique people's interest.
Yeah. We, so just recently finding out about what C.A.R.E.S is and stuff, we work here with one of our research labs, and they ended up getting a Lake Victorian cichlid, Haplochromis. I'm not going to pronounce it wrong, but it's Pisciatus, something like that. Mm-hmm. It's apparently when they got it, it was vulnerable, but now I guess they can't find it anywhere when they try to resurvey it, so they don't know where they're at, where they were from. So they gave it here to, we're one farm. I think they gave it to like 7 farms. So we have 7 farms trying to produce that fish at scale. So I told, when we first got it, I was like, you know what, this needs to be on our list to find one species. If it produces enough young that we could produce one different C.A.R.E.S species a year and take it to scale where it could be a commercially viable fish in a way. But I don't know how much pushback we're going to get from that, but we're at least trying to keep it alive and doing something that we just got it maybe a month ago. Or so. So we're working with that species now, and I find that part to be pretty enjoyable and doing something like that for the conservation side.
And it's always fun to get new fish. Right?
It's always fun to get new fish. Every week we try to get something different and new, and I'm like, oh, where does it? And my whole thing is I'm very big of going back to origin. Where did it come from? Where's this fish from? Most of the stuff we don't get anything really wild caught. But stuff we get in that's new, I'm like, oh, where's this fish from? What does it habitat look like? I'm a big fan of biotope tanks. Like I like doing something and putting something native up, and everything in the tank is from the same area. It looks similar, down to the decor and leaflets or whatever you want to say. So that to me is my big push for stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm always fascinated by that sort of stories. That's why I was really interested in the origin story where you went. I'm like, man, I want to know what's it like to go to these places, because that's on my agenda too. I'll probably go to the Amazon first, because it's a little bit closer a flight, so I can deal with that, get my own gumption up to go. So I was like, I got to go. So I'll probably start there.
Yeah, well, that's a great place. You don't have a time change.
Yeah.
You make it home in one day.
Yeah.
And I had a blast going down there, but after swimming in 2 pristine, clear lakes, it's kind of hard to wade around in that muddy water down there.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, man. Back to the C.A.R.E.S thing, because I did want to mention this real quick. So if a hobbyist wanted to get involved with C.A.R.E.S and keep a species, what's the best route for them to be involved?
Well, they're welcome to keep anything that's off the list. And they could, I encourage all hobbyists to kind of do a little diary book, or, and write down when you bought at least write down the fish's full name and when you bought it. And if it's a C.A.R.E.S species, you might want to record your spawns and what you did with your spawns. Did you trade them, or donate them to your club, or anything like that? And if your club has a C.A.R.E.S program, then you should just see how they're handling everything. And if they don't, maybe you can suggest that that's something that that the club could do. They could check it out. But other than that, Claudia keeps that list pretty up to date, and they've made some changes here and there, like tropheus elangi used to be on there, and we had to take that off, and so I do think it is a good list, and I do think it's another fun thing to learn about your fish.
Absolutely. Well, that's all of my questions. I kind of just wanted to get your final thoughts. Anything we didn't talk about you think we should have talked about? Any last mentions of anything?
No, I can't think of anything. I'm sure I left something unwound, but I'll probably hear about it. But thank you for having me come and talk. I love to talk about cichlids, and I'm heading to the lake, I think, in about 4 weeks. So.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's fantastic.
I didn't get to go last year, so I'm trying to go this year.
That's fantastic. Oh, man. Well, thank you so much. I definitely appreciate it, and I'm thrilled for how this came out, and this is going to be one of definitely my favorites so far I've done. So I'm very excited. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you everybody else for listening and watching. So I'll see everybody next time. Take care. Oh.